From the Knack's My Sharona to the mysterious psychedelic anthem by Iron Butterfly, we're uncovering the surprising stories behind the world's most iconic and cheesy one-hit wonders. Just how they exploded and took over the radio airwaves. You know, the kind of song you had to yell at your little brother to stop singing now. And our first decade brought us some of the best and worst hits from the 1960s. Do You Love Me? The Contours, 1962. In early 1962, legendary Motown songwriter Berry Gordy wrote Do You Love Me for a young and upcoming new group called The Temptations. Berry knew he had a hit on his hands, with the only problem that the Temptations were nowhere to be found. Needing to record and release his hit as soon as possible, he grabbed fellow Motown group The Contours, who were already in the studio, and the rest is history.
You broke my heart, 'cause I couldn't dance.
The song references numerous dance fads of the 60s, combining them all into a raucous good time. Do You Love Me flew to number 3 on the charts, becoming an instant dance sensation, and the band's only top 10 hit. Although they continued to record music and tour for years, the Contours never achieved this level of success again.
That just like in 1962, we can still shake them down.
However, Do You Love Me charted all over again in 1988 after appearing on the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, and continues to appear in movies and TV to this day. Notably, it appeared in Steven Spielberg's Tiny Toons, introducing another generation to this timeless classic.
I can really shake them down.
Spirit in the Sky, Norman Greenbaum, 1969. In the late 60s, Norman Greenbaum was a struggling singer with Dr. West's Medicine Show and Junk Band, a psychedelic jug band that got a big break opening for the legendary Sonny and Cher. And for an additional Sonny and Cher kick, check out our deep dive episode on the hit duo. So, one day Greenbaum heard a Porter Wagoner gospel song and decided that he wanted to try his hand at writing one.
Each time the noise came louder.
He sat down and in 15 minutes wrote Spirit in the Sky, a smash hit in 1969 that went to number 3 on the chart. Spirit in the Sky fuses rock and gospel in a way very few songs have. A fuzzy guitar, gospel backing vocals, and uplifting lyrics of hope and salvation combined to make a unique magic no one had ever really heard anything like before. Unfortunately, Greenbaum was unable to replicate this success, and by the late 1980s was working as a cook in Northern California. But then suddenly, there was an explosion of licensing agreements for the song. Greenbaum's one hit is now set up to comfortably support him for the rest of his life. Nah Nah, Hey Hey, Kiss 'Em Goodbye, Steam, 1969. When a group of session musicians recorded the song Nah Nah, Hey Hey, Kiss 'Em Goodbye as a B-side for singer Gary DiCarlo, they thought nothing much would come of it. And when the producers asked what their name was, naturally they looked around for something to say. And after observing some mist rising from manhole covers outside the surrounding studio, on the spot they came up with Steam. The triumphant breakup ballad quickly flew to number 1 on the charts, and the group decided to record an album and tour together full time. Unfortunately, Steam couldn't keep their steamy momentum and never charted another single. But then, in 1977, the organist for the Chicago White Sox began to play the song to taunt opponents in the middle of blowout victories. And the tradition quickly spread to every major sporting event. Who hasn't sat in the stands and gleefully sung Na 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 Na, Hey Hey Hey, Goodbye?
Finals.
Monster Mash, Bobby Pickett, 1962.
They played the Monster Mash.
Monster Mash might be the only Halloween hit that has stood the test of time. Bobby Pickett was an aspiring actor who occasionally played music to make ends meet. When he started doing an impression of famed horror movie actor Boris Karloff,
I played the Demon King in Cinderella.
his friends loved it, encouraging him to do more with the hilarious bit. So he wrote a terrifyingly catchy song about a group of dancing monsters that was sung in his Karloff impression. Released just before Halloween, the song instantly shot to number 1.
Then you can monster mash.
Pickett never had another hit, instead retreading the monster theme, releasing Monster Holiday, Me and My Mummy, and Monster Rap.
Shot the body, body, shock the body, body, shock.
In-a-gadda-da-vidda, Iron Butterfly 1968. In-a-gadda-da-vidda is one of the first Billboard hits that is considered heavy metal, featuring a fuzzed-out guitar riff, powerfully throbbing drums, and an eerily ominous organ. The song certainly rocks. While the single that was released clocks in at a measly 2 minutes and 52 seconds, the album version lasts for over 17 minutes. Even the title came about through a bit of heavy metal excess. It was written by organist Doug Ingle while drinking an entire gallon of red wine. When he played the song to the rest of the band, he was slurring so much that they couldn't understand what he was saying. And so, a song originally titled In the Garden of Eden became In-a-gadda-da-vidda. Iron Butterfly never had another song as successful, but In-a-gadda-da-vidda lives on, famously appearing in a Simpsons episode using its original unslurred title.
Wait a minute, this sounds like rock and or roll.
Wipeout, The Safaris, 1963. The epitome of 60s surf rock, Wipeout was a happy accident. In 1963, the Safaris were a group of young high school friends who were in the studio recording their song Surfer Joe when the band realized that they needed a B-side for their single and wrote the instrumental Wipeout, pretty much on the spot as a throwaway. But with a furious drum solo that was a sped-up version of the group's marching band cadence, the song was an irresistible summer smash. It quickly soared to number 2 and stayed on the charts for 30 weeks. The Safaris continued to record music, but nothing else they released matched the popularity of Wipeout, and the band broke up in 1966. Wipeout can still be heard in movies such as Dirty Dancing, The Sandlot, and Toy Story 2, and will always be a summer favorite. Nobody But Me, The Human Beings, 1968. If repetition is the key to success, then the Human Beings certainly succeeded with their 1968 hit, Nobody But Me. In '68, the Human Beings were a rather unremarkable cover band struggling to make any traction in the music industry. In fact, they were so unknown that their record label misspelled their name on their contract. A G was dropped, and the Beings became the Beans. However, that all changed when they covered the Isley Brothers' 1962 failed single, Nobody But Me, a song about a man proudly proclaiming his dancing prowess. Nobody But Me was an up-tempo, feel-good dance hit and quickly went to number 8 on the charts and into the record books. The song holds the record for the most repetitive Billboard Top 100 single, with the word no being repeated over 100 times, including an astounding 31 times in a row. The band quickly faded back into obscurity, however, and by 1969 they had called it quits. Nobody But Me continues to live on, however, appearing in Kill Bill and in TV's The Office Season 7 intro. Just One Look, Doris Troy, 1963.
Just one look.
Theater, when you're just 16, it definitely bodes well for your future music career. It seemed as if the sky was the limit for the up-and-coming new singer. Just One Look was a prototypical 1960s soul song, an upbeat love ballad that you could dance to. And in a departure from a lot of songs in the early 60s, it was actually written by Troy herself. The original demo that she recorded for Atlantic Records was so good that the label decided to release it as is, rather than re-record it, and it rocketed up to number 3 on the charts. Unfortunately, Troy's early promise didn't last, and she was unable to chart another hit. Although she continued to sync back up long after her solo career ended, her career definitely peaked with Just One Look. Sugar Sugar, The Archies, 1969. The Weird Sisters from Harry Potter, Bill and Ted's excellent band Wild Stallions, Sexual Chocolate of Coming to America fame. These are all fictional bands that made audiences fall in love with them, but none of these groups were as successful as the Archies, who have the distinction of being both a fake band and the singers of 1969's #1 hit, Sugar Sugar. The hit song was recorded by session musicians to be a single for the Archies, a cartoon band from the TV show of the same name. However, record companies were hesitant to play a song from a made-up band, so the record company gave the song to radio DJs with no label and told them it was a mystery group. And boom, Sugar Sugar shot to #1. with the fake band selling over 1 million very real records. Well, the Archies never had another hit, but the song continues to be used in TV to this day, making appearances on The Wonder Years and The Simpsons.
Sugar do 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 do. Oh, honey, honey do 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 do.
The Streak, Ray Stevens.
And he ain't wearing no clothes. Oh, yes, they call him the Streak.
For some reason in the mid-1970s, America became obsessed with the idea of streaking. Streakers were everywhere, in the newspapers, on TV shows, sporting events, and Robert Opel even streaked across the stage of the Oscars.
Probably the only laugh that man will ever get in his life is by stripping off and showing his shortcomings.
And the culmination of this fad, Ray Stevens' cheesy 1974 #1 hit, simply titled The Streak. The song's 3 verses open with a news reporter interviewing an eyewitness to 3 separate instances of streaking. It turns out that the same man was there all 3 times, which seems suspicious to me. He reports that he had to yell to his wife Ethel to cover her eyes, but she's too late every time, and always gets an eyeful. By the end of the song, Ethel has left the man for the streaker, so she apparently liked what she saw. If this sounds like an awesome idea for a song to you, I'm just not sure, because it's so cheesy and not great. Fortunately, much like its namesake fad, the Streak's popularity has faded since its heyday, and hopefully won't ever be revived. But if you want to relive some groovy fads, we do have a collection of 1970s fads to take you back. Kung Fu Fighting, Carl Douglas. Now we have the hit that kicked its way into people's hearts and minds. Literally, because during the summer of 1974, everyone was kung fu fighting, with lines like there were funky Chinamen from funky Chinatown, and using a melody unfortunately named the Oriental Riff. This song was always going to be problematic even if it was sung by an Asian American. Of course, it wasn't. It was sung by Jamaican vocalist Carl Douglas, which makes kung fu fighting's underlying racism that much worse. And moving beyond the poor racial stereotypes, the song is just plain dumb. With exaggerated huzz and ha-has meant to imitate karate, the song veers from interesting novelty to cheesy mess almost instantly. The worst thing about it is how dang catchy kung fu fighting is. Once you hear it, the rest of your day is ruined, as Those Cats Were Fast as Lightning plays on repeat in your head. Hopelessly Devoted to You, Olivia Newton-John. Guess mine is not the first heartbroken. My eyes are not the first to cry. I'm not the first to know. There's just no getting over you. If this opening line to Hopelessly Devoted to You isn't the definition of cheeseball, then I don't know what is. The song was sung by Olivia Newton-John in the hit movie Grease, and it just doesn't get any better after that whopper of an opening stanza. It's chock full of some of the most stereotypical saccharine smalts you could ever come up with. My heart is saying don't let go. Hold on to the end. That's what I intend to do. I'm hopelessly devoted to you. Oof, makes me dry heave just a bit. And then you remember that this is a 16-year-old singing about a 17-year-old who she knew for a few weeks during summer vacation, and the gags become all too real. The makers of Grease were forced to include this song because Newton-John's contract had a requirement that she would have a vocal solo. Luckily, no one is contractually obligated to listen to it, and since most of the other songs are absolute smash hits, we have 2 throwback Grease videos that you should check out next. Convoy, C.W. McCall.
We about to go a hunting bear.
The 1970s sure were a bizarre time. Exhibit A, Convoy. a song about a rebellious group of long-haul truckers, sung by fictional character C.W. McCall. The song attempted to capitalize on the CB radio fad that was sweeping the country in the mid-70s. To protest unfair working conditions, the truckers Rubber Duck, Pigpen, and Sodbuster, all CB radio handles, break the speed limit, tear up their timesheets designed to make them get rest, and refuse to drive on toll roads, all the while talking in CB slang on their radios. So as far as rebellions go, a pretty minor one. I suppose that to a public that was in the grip of CB fever, the song had a certain appeal. But looking back on it 45 years later, it's hard to see what exactly that was. Hindsight is 2020, and today we can clearly see Convoy for what it is, a cheesy novelty song that doesn't need more than one listen. I do think that I kinda need a cool CB handle though. Maybe Nickstalgic, over and out. Midnight at the Oasis, Maria Muldaur.
Midnight at the Oasis.
Sometimes cheesy can mean sappy, sometimes silly, sometimes outdated. And Maria Muldaur's 1973 hit, Midnight at the Oasis, tidily indulges in all four of these definitions. A song about some good old-fashioned desert lovemaking. Midnight at the Oasis contains the not unproblematic lines, "I can be your belly dancer, and you can be my sheik." And, "I know your daddy's a sultan, a nomad known to all. With 50 girls to attend him, they all jump at his beck and call." Oof. But people apparently found this song to be super sexy. Muldaur has stated that to this day, people still come up and tell her that Midnight at the Oasis has inspired sexual encounters, pregnancies, and even the loss of virginity.
I didn't understand why a song about a camel, why is this taking the nation by storm? And
I guess when you hear the line, "and you won't need no camel when I take you for a ride," the only option is to immediately start having sex. The song, while a hit in its day, probably belongs buried in that very desert. Disco Duck, Rick Dees and his cast of idiots. This cheesy 1976 single was a no-brainer. The fact that the single is ambitiously dumb is self-explanatory. Annoying as all get out, self-evident upon listening. But here we go. Dees originally wrote the song in just one day. Wow, shocker. As a parody novelty mocking disco music. But as Nietzsche said, battle not with monsters, lest you yourself become a monster. And boy did Disco Duck become a monster. It shot up the charts to #1, was on every radio station in the country, and was featured in a scene from Saturday Night Fever. But unlike other songs on this list, I don't want the song to remain in the 70s. Far from needing to disappear. I think Disco Duck should be mandatory listening for all aspiring songwriters.
Stop it, please, I beg you!
Afterwards, we'd grab them by the shoulders, shake them, and desperately plead. Please, for the love of God, do not write music like this. The Blind Man in the Bleachers, David Geddes.
It's the last game of the season on a Friday night at home.
So far, we've had some pretty cheesy fare, but for this one, I'm gonna need you to take my hand and jump, cause we're diving into a massive fondue pot of life. David Geddes released The Blind Man in the Bleachers in 1975, and oh boy, is it something. The song tells the story of a high school footballer who's not good enough to ever play. His blind father sits right next to the announcer in the stands, and his biggest wish is to hear his son's name called when he enters the game. Then one day the father doesn't show up, and because of injuries, the boy plays the greatest game ever, rallying his team to victory. He then explains that his dad died earlier that day, went to heaven, and the boy played so well because it was the first game his dad could watch him play. Whew, cue the waterworks. It's as if every corny, stereotypically melodramatic trope was forced into one song. Fortunately, Geddes' song is no longer popular, so we're all saved from truly the cheesiest song of the 70s. Mickey, Tony Basil. the opening line to Tony Basil's one and only hit song, creatively entitled Mickey. But in Basil's defense, it's nearly impossible to write a song about young love that doesn't sound cheesy, because teenagers are innocent and, yes, dumb. You take me by the heart when you take me by the hand might seem like the height of romance when you're 15, but several heartbreaks later and some emotional breakdowns, it just seems hopelessly naive. And then you watch the music video for Mickey and things do get worse. Cause hey, Basil does give it her all in the form of a dance routine, but then you notice she is 38 years old, trapezing around in a high school cheerleader's uniform. And this cheese seems to spoil a bit. Tarzan Boy, Baltimora. It's kind of self-explanatory why a song called Tarzan Boy makes a list of cheesy 80s songs. But here goes anyway. First of all, the beat of Italian band Baltimora's 1985 hit is epic. Like really, really epic. Like belongs in an 80s boxing movie montage epic. Then right when you're getting pumped up, ready to land the haymaker, the first cries of come in, and you think, where is this going? Well, straight to the jungle, my friend, because Tarzan Boy is about exactly what you'd think. A lonely jungle boy just looking for love. Oof. And if you're just dying to get your Tarzan fix, but you want to eliminate the cheese, crank up Phil Collins' You'll Be in My Heart. And let the tears flow. It's raining men, the Weather Girls.
Raining men, hallelujah, it's raining men.
I did hesitate to put this song on the list, but after years of pop music objectifying women, it's kinda nice for men to finally be objects for once. And the Weather Girls' 1982 single, It's Raining Men, is just too silly that it practically begs to be included. There's nothing wrong about a song about a woman pumped up about the sheer number and variety of men. Tall, blonde, dark, and lean. Rough and tough and strong and mean. But when you start including the cringe-worthy amount of weather puns, and top that off with stormy sound effects, the result is a cheese ball of epic proportions. Or perhaps the single most perfect drag song of all time. Ice Ice Baby, Vanilla Ice. And now, onto the song that set white rappers back decades. Vanilla Ice's 1989 hit, which combined all of the worst elements of rap, startling dumb lyrics, and a beat stolen, without any credit from David Bowie and Queen's Under Pressure. Ice Ice Baby sounds like it was written by a middle-aged computer that had only been fed negative news stories about how hip-hop was ruining the youth of today. I mean, look at these lyrics. Quick to the point, no faking. I'm cooking MCs like a pound of bacon. It kinda sounds like it was written by a 16-year-old, which is exactly how old Vanilla Ice was when he penned this masterpiece cheese. Putting on the Ritz, Taco.
You're blue and you don't know where to go to. Why don't you go where fashion sits?
How does one take a classic song by master songwriter Irving Berlin, which has been sung by such luminaries as Fred Astaire and Bing Crosby, and transform it into an absolute cheeseball of a travesty? Well, you have it covered as a synth pop song in 1982 by none other than a Taco. And suddenly a big band staple morphs into a pretentious, silly mess. You might be thinking that the singer's name being Taco is a choice that makes everything cheesier, but hold your horses, because Taco is his real parent-given name. His mother, Enchilada, and Papa Fritas, gave birth to a one-hit wonder. And no, don't even think about watching the music video in hopes of it being the song Salvation, as it prominently features actors in blackface. Oh no, Taco. What I Am, Edie Brickell and New Bohemians.
Not aware of too many things. I know what I know if you know what I mean.
There are few things cheesier than faux profundity in a song. When a band is trying so very hard to be deep and mysterious, but ends up just spouting nonsense. Enter Edie Brickell and New Bohemians, and their 1988 hit, containing lines like, "What I am is what I am, you're what you are," or what? I mean, the song sounds like it was written by a second semester philosophy major trying to impress the opposite sex over glasses of vermouth at the local bar. Philosophy. I mean, listen to this. Philosophy is the talk on a cereal box. Religion is the smile on a dog. Like, seriously, we don't even need to go past the first stanza. Yikes. I really don't know what you mean, Edie. All I know is this song is one of the cheesiest bits of drivel ever served up in the 80s. And I'm also fairly certain their drummer was NSYNC's Lance Bass. But before we depart from Edie, I do need to mention that she has been married to Paul Simon since 1992. She met the singer while performing for SNL in 1988 when she noticed Paul Simon standing in front of a cameraman. Huh, who'da thunk it? She blinded me with science. Thomas Dolby. When I first read the title of Thomas Dolby's 1982 hit, my first thought was naturally, oh cool, lasers. But then I listened to the song and was greatly disappointed. Because what Dolby is singing about is in fact not literal blindness, but how he is blind to a girl's faults because of chemical and biological reactions in his body. But this cheese is made even cheesier, nacho cheesier if you will, by the presence of a mad scientist character who makes random exclamations like, "Good heavens, Miss Sakamoto, you're beautiful," for the entire song. Seriously, I'd have preferred the lasers. Funky Town, Lips Inc. Sometimes what makes a song cheesy isn't just its music or lyrics, but when it was released. And voila, 1980s hit Funky Town, which don't get me wrong, this song with about 6 lines repeated, mostly just "Won't you take me to Funky Town," is cheesy as hell, but the cheesiness of Lips single goes beyond that, as the song is considered the last real disco hit. I mean, by the 80s, disco was virtually dead. Pop music had moved past the fad, and now those pounding, irresistible beats were already starting to sound old-fashioned. And what I think makes Funky Town so cheesy is that the funk town the singer wants to be taken to no longer exists. It was blown sky high during disco demolition night, never to return. I Just Died in Your Arms, Cutting Crew. The first time you hear the Cutting Crew's 1986 hit, it seems like a fairly deep song about love and loss. I mean, dying in someone's arms. That's pretty heavy. But then you realize that Cutting Crew are French, and the French use the lovely term la petite mort, or the little death, as a euphemism for an orgasm, which means the song is simply about 2 people getting it on. It's a bit sordid, and when combined with the song's dramatic, super-produced instrumentation, lyrics about 2 people making the beast with 2 backs leads nowhere except Cheesetown. Population Le Cutting Crew. Don't worry, be happy. Bobby McFerrin. Okay, I know this one is sure to ruffle some feathers, but before you get all your pitchforks out for this 1988 hit, let me remind you that cheesy doesn't necessarily mean bad. And whether you love McFerrin's ode to carefree living or you hate it, everyone must agree on its overwhelmingly cheesy aspect. I mean, McFerrin is basically offering up amnesia as a solution to all of life's problems. Don't worry, be happy. It's a lovely sentiment in a vacuum, but in the real world with real world problems, it comes off a bit cheesy. Oof, alright, those were some memorable one-hit wonders for sure. Now, we're not quite done yet, cause I've got some real oldies in my back pocket, so let's venture back to the 1950s to discover the one-hit wonders that started it all. The Purple People Eater, Sheb Wooley.
Was a one-eyed, one-horned, blind purple people eater.
The 1950s were the glory days for novelty songs, and no ditty better encapsulates the silliness of the genre better than The Purple People Eater. The song, a #1 hit for Sheb Wooley in 1958, tells the tale of a monster who flies to Earth, not to terrorize the population, but rather to join a rock and roll band. He enjoys wearing short shorts and swinging from trees. So naturally, he finds success in the music industry, and soon appears on his own TV show, Rockin' Away. A common misconception is that the titular monster is itself purple, while in fact, the ravenous beast just eats purple people. Which seems kind of offensive? Maybe they're grape flavored? I don't know. What I do know is that the premise of the song was originated with a joke told by a small child, and the whole cheesy mess took Wooley less than an hour to write. Which, yeah, of course. If it took Wooley any longer, I think I'd be worried about him, and probably feed him to the purple people eater. Let me be your teddy bear, Elvis Presley.
Let me be, let him be.
Elvis is undoubtedly one of the greatest rock and roll artists of all time, with hits like Heartbreak Hotel and Hound Dog. He revolutionized popular music, helping usher in an era of rock dominance. But sometimes even the greats hit Smalt's bottom. And for Elvis, that was Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear. Somehow a #1 hit in 1957, the song is about exactly what you think it is. Containing the immortal lines, put a chain around my neck, lead me anywhere, and run your fingers through my hair, cuddle me real tight. The song is a non-stop goopy gag fest that reaches a cheesy low for Elvis, and seems targeted at 13-year-old girls. And just in case you were confused by the title of the song, Elvis repeatedly states that he doesn't want to be your tiger or lion because they're too rough, and you, quote, don't love them enough. Fortunately for the King's legacy, most people today would be hard-pressed to name this eminently forgettable hit, and it should probably be left back in the 1950s. Witch Doctor, David Seville.
I told the witch doctor I was in love with you.
And the next up in 1958's novelty song assault on all that is decent and good in the world, we have Witch Doctor by David Seville. The song focuses on a man who, faced with unrequited love, goes to a witch doctor for help, just like we all would. The man tells his sad tale, and the shaman gives him some sage advice, namely, nothing more, nothing less, which would have me asking for my money back. Apparently the advice works, however, and the nonsensical line is repeated endlessly throughout the rest of the song. But the true trouble with Witch Doctor is just how damn catchy it is. While complete and utter gibberish, that chorus just sticks in your head interminably. You'll find yourself whispering it to yourself days later, weeks later, months later, walla walla bing bang. The chorus is also sung in a high-pitched, nasal, incredibly annoying voice, a voice Seville would later use to create the Chipmunks. Another strike against the supremely cheesy Witch Doctor. But if you love Seville and didn't want Christmas ever to be late, check out our countdown of cheesiest Christmas songs next. Love Letters in the Sand, Pat Boone. Nothing up to this point has prepared you for the pure saccharine blast that is Pat Boone's Love Letters in the Sand. I know that Boone didn't originally write the song, but his version is so cringe-inducingly cheesy that we had to include it. The song follows a couple expressing their love for each other by writing it in the sand at the beach. Despite the obvious impermanence of this situation, the man begins to cry when the waves wash away their writing. A situation so silly that even his partner in the song laughs in his face. The relationship obviously doesn't last, because who would want to be with someone who acts like a 4-year-old getting their sandcastle destroyed? And yes, I know that it's a metaphor, but oh man, what a dumb one. The song's inane lyrics combined with Boone's earnest delivery to really break the scale on the cheese meter. Please, never play it in any romantic situation. But Boone's whistling in the song is pretty incredible. Hot diggity dog ziggity boom. Perry Como.
Oh, hot diggity dog ziggity boom, what's it do to me?
From the opening notes, it sounds like you've stumbled into a bizarro carnival from hell. You can tell Perry Como's 1956 hit is a cheeseball lover's dream. The song is about a man who has recently found the love of his life, who makes his heart go zing that-a-way. He can't contain his excitement and just has to exclaim hot diggity repeatedly. Admittedly, the song's cheese factor is upped by the fact that hot diggity sounds so old-fashioned to our ears. But I doubt that even in 1956, this song was considered either hip or romantic. Como also ends every line in the song's verses with that-a-way, which seems lazy and makes me want to run the other way as fast as I can. The phrase hot diggity dog dates back at least to the 1920s, but it appears that ziggity was invented by the songwriters solely for rhyming purposes. Art at its finest. Venus, Frankie Avalon. This 1959 5-week-long #1 hit tells the tale of a young man pleading to the Roman goddess Venus to send him someone to love. Ah, how sweet, you think. Avalon wants someone so bad he's praying to a literal goddess of love. Until you hear his requirements for the girl, that is. She needs to be fair-skinned, have sunlight in her hair, bright eyes, and want to kiss him. That's it. No mention of anything like intelligence or sense of humor, because who cares what's going on inside her head as long as she's pretty. Venus is a perfect example of 1950s ballads that only go skin deep. In this case, literally. No mention of a deeper connection, nothing about emotions. No need to work on a relationship, just give me someone attractive and it will all work out. But after 60-odd years of pop music making such amazing love songs as Something by the Beatles,
Something in the way she woos me,
or Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton, these types of songs sound unbelievably cheesy to our ears. The Rock and Roll Waltz, K-Star.
They were trying to waltz to a rock and roll song.
By the mid-1950s, pop music in America was in the midst of a revolution. Rock had taken over the airwaves, and young people were listening to almost nothing else. So obviously major music labels tried to jump in. Enter K-Star's 1955 #1 single, The Rock and Roll Waltz. The song focused on a teenage girl who comes home to find her parents listening to her rock records. Not knowing any better, the old fogies are trying to dance a waltz to the new music. Not hip at all. Originally a jazz and country singer, Starr thought it was a joke when the label gave her the song because it was so different from her previous work. But let me recap real quick. The song was a record label cash grab capitalizing on rock music, making fun of old people who didn't understand rock music, sung by an older woman who didn't understand rock music, and wasn't actually a rock song, it was a waltz. That's the most convoluted, confusing, meta thing I've ever heard. But it worked, and the cheesy single sold more than 1 million copies. Mainly to parents, I assume. Alright, which one-hit wonder from our compilation was your favorite? Get in the comments and tell us all your thoughts. And from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you very much for watching.